I wasn't able to scrapbook for half the month of November. Today, I'm going to go through my little stack of layouts that I completed in November. I wasn't able to scrapbook for half the month of November. I restarted making layouts halfway through the month. Now, a few of these had a head start, which helped me a bit. 7 of the 10 were layouts I made to be catching up on the Creative Memories virtual crop. Even though I may have missed the October and the November sketch deadlines, there was still a chance to enter the annual prize if I completed the layouts before the end of December. So let's get started. I made this layout when those new custom cutting borders came out, and I was so excited to use them. I've been making variations of this same layout for years. And if you've watched my channel, you've seen me make this same type border at least 3 times. You'll see it in my previous layout share, and it is just taking the middle-sized custom cutting circle and cutting it on both the outer track and the inner track to make a donut, and then taking a border, preferably a curvy border, and threading it through the center. I made a grid style over here with these photos. This is a fast and simple layout at its base, and there is a process video for it. This layout was the second one I made using the new templates. This used the zigzag and the peak templates. I just love using those templates. There is a process video for this as well. The papers I used were from the Creative Memories Secret Box number 4. The company, a few times a year, generally 4 times a year, will basically offer a mystery box for you to purchase. And if you purchase the box, you can always be sure there will be paper and a tool and some other surprises inside of the box. And they also have an opening date where everybody is supposed to open the secret box all together at the same time and see what the surprise is. I use my same old technique that I use over and over and over again. On this side, I use the same technique to make this peak, and then I just put a 1/2 inch strip here and put my photos on the page like this. I think this is a great design that I use for when I have a lot of horizontal photos. This layout was also a virtual crop sketch. In order to try to find photos that would work with it, this is what I came up with. I actually had extra photos, and peekaboo pockets would not work because these photos are about 3.5 by 5. They're not 4 by 6, which is the size of the peekaboo pockets. Now I know I could try to use a tool to change the size of the peekaboo pockets. I was in a rush and I just wasn't up to trying that out. So I took my extra photos here and I made this pocket out of vellum. So I made a vellum pocket for the bottom, and I'm sliding the extra photos behind the vellum here. You can kind of see them peeking through, but it kept my layout intact and it kept my photos together on the page that I wanted them to be with. This is another virtual crop sketch. I had these photos from our summer travels, a road trip we took. And I took a few photos of signs as we entered various states in the US, and they just seemed to work for a layout like this. So I adapted that sketch and I cut apart some of the various papers I had in my collection. This is actually a variety mat card. So this layout was a simple grid. It had a big block right here, which I just used white cardstock for. It called for borders here, which the intention I think was a punched border. I found this paper and I thought that this road was just perfect to be the borders top and bottom here. So the only punch I did was to do this shape punch. And I found some stickers and a title. In all honesty, I like this layout for a single photo, and I do plan to make it again with just a single photo. So I think this is 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall. So essentially an 8 by 10. This was another virtual crop sketch. It had circles here, and you cut your circle off there. And I actually found a photo I could cut as a circle. That's something I don't do. It was a very simple sketch design where you had this 3-inch band across the left and right side, anchor it down with some stickers, and then you had this wider, I think 6-inch band across the center. And you had this circle that is roughly 6.5 inches, and where you cut off a couple of inches, put it up here, there. I really like that idea. I think I'll do it again. I punched a circle, an anchor, and a compass here. I used their punch of the cruise ship, but then I pulled out my stamps and I added a few of my own embellishments that I stamped myself to make these clusters just a little bit more interesting. This is a layout I made from a virtual crop sketch that I split apart and made 2 independent layouts from. I didn't have the right photos to make that layout as a 2-page. So I looked through my photos and saw, well, what photos need to be made into a page? And I selected these photos over here that were a good configuration to match that sketch. Plus, I had been dying to use my Christmas supplies and this darling little photo of my grandniece. And so I made 2 pages that will go in 2 different albums, but I used the sketch. So this just goes to show how you can adapt the sketches to meet your needs. This sketch is another one from the virtual crop. I had these photos. It called for 6 4 by 4 inch square photos. I was happy that I found 5 and said I can make one of these boxes a journaling spot. And so that's what I'll do to tell the story here. On this side, the layout called for a, I believe, 10.5-inch circle, which I had to use the new Creative Memories circle cutter, not the custom cutting template that you use the red blade or the green blade or the blue blades in. Not that one. It is a rotary one where you hold it in the middle and you cut around. And I loved it actually. I had never used it. It was just one of those tools that I kept saying, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later. So that circle, it cuts anywhere from 3 inches is the smallest circle. And I believe it'll cut roughly 11.5 inches, very, very close to a 12-inch circle, and any range in between. So you can cut as small as 3 inches and almost to 12 inches and anything in between. It's a great tool. I am surprised it isn't getting more use. This layout was yet another virtual crop sketch. And to my own surprise, I got my photos on here almost the same size as the sketch called for. I think all but one of these photos is the size on the sketch, which is rare for me. I'm also very happy to get these photos made. I was a little surprised, especially cutting down these photos. With that one, I looked at them closely. I went, oh yeah, I can easily cut off just some concrete. and get this onto a page. I also went into my stash of these flowers that I've been trying to use, and I forgot about them. But when I made these, which is from a punch from Creative Memories, and I saw the flower theme, I said, you need to be using up those flowers. I've made a pact with myself that I will use up those flowers and never buy any more. I also had this stamp, and I think it's from an Echo Park stamp set. And I really wanted some monstera leaf on this layout, but without using one of the dies or the punches. And I felt a red monstera leaf is not realistic, but when stamped, I think I can get away with the color being wrong because it's just a decorative element and a shape. But I'm very, very pleased with how this turned out. The sketch basically called for this wide band in the center and then photos around like this. Now, flowing right in from the other layout, you've seen this background before. It was in my last layout share that I made during a retreat. And I was so happy when I came home and found the photos. And now I'm happy again that I have the photos on the page and the page completed. I pulled the same idea and theme from the other layout to put here, and I also reached into my collection of flowers and pulled more of them out to use. I decided that even though the monstera leaf is not the correct color, it blends with the color and theme of the layout, so I went with it as a border and a base for putting other decorative elements and making it basically a cluster and a base for my title. And at the end of the day, I just love how this flowed through. This layout was another virtual crop sketch. It's actually pretty simple. It was originally intended for variety mat cards to be placed on the angle here. I decided that what I really wanted was a nice solid piece right here. So I literally cut my paper on the diagonal. Then I used the new border punch scalloped wave, which came in secret box number 4. But when I cut my paper at the angle, that makes the length of this more than 12 inches. So when I cut these borders using a 12-inch sheet of paper, they were not quite long enough. So what I did was I literally cut them and made a slight slit right here and right there and covered up the little space. It was probably a 1/4 inch or less of a space, but now it looks like I have a continuous border here. But I like this design and I do hope to use it again. I think this is a great design if you have a single photo. This layout does not have Creative Memories papers on it. The only Creative Memories on this page is this border where I used a punch and a border maker cartridge to create this border of, I think this is called Charming Village. It's a punch, and this is called Sandcastles, which is a border maker cartridge. This was a base page that I had in my collection, and I'm trying to use up those base pages. And I'm trying to use up older papers and products in my collection here. And here is the final layout that I made in November. This layout has a peekaboo pocket. It was using up some older papers in my collection. I did use a Creative Memories punch, and I trimmed off the top of it and it looks just like a railroad track. It's a fence punch, but it looks like a railroad track. I pulled out some dies and my stamps, and I'm once again very happy to be using the older papers in my collection. This paper is so old, I think I've had it closing in on 20 years. So I'm intending to be using much more of a blend of my old and new. Hope you enjoyed watching this layout share and that you will subscribe to the channel to see more videos, more processes of making layouts like these, and more techniques and tips. Right now, YouTube says that you would like this video, so please watch it now.